Good afternoon, friends. I welcome you to the next session of your first day of induction, Ignite 2020. I'm Professor Arpit Trivedi, your event host and moderator. Let me take you through the process of how we'll conduct the webinar today. Our guest will address the batch for an hour. First 50 minutes will be knowledge sharing, and last 10 minutes will be question and answers. Students are encouraged to put relevant to the topic questions in the chat box. Now I would take this opportunity to introduce our next speaker of the day, Mr. Abhijit Zorwekar. Sir is an experienced business growth professional with a highly successful track record in market identification, market improvement, market development, and market redevelopment. Sir has spearheaded verticals like direct sales, channel sales, marketing, branding, tech support, and global business expansion. Abhijit sir, in his illustrious career, has exposure to various product and service industries, which include industrial automation products and services, software solutions, and IT security. In his 15-year-old long association with Quick Hill Technologies Limited, a household name in the field of IT security today, he was part of leadership team that led the startup to a successful IPO. Sir is alumnus of Department of Management Science, Pumba, University of Pune, and IIM Bangalore. Sir holds the honorary position of Member Board of Studies at IIEBM. Presently, Sir mentors and guides budding entrepreneurs and startups under the capacity of independent GTM consultant. Now, I would request Sir to open the session for our students.
Hey, thanks a lot, Arpit, and glad to be here. So I think good afternoon, everyone, and really happy to be interacting with all of you over here. So what we have here is, I will be sharing something about my own journey in terms of the entrepreneurship stuff that I've been through. I've worked with a lot of entrepreneurs primarily, and it's been a great journey. There are a lot of learnings, and what I've seen is these days there's strong interest in entrepreneurial activities even among younger generation. So age is no longer a bar. Where somebody says that, hey, is this the right time to start your entrepreneurial journey? And then there are a lot of questions, whenever I talk with students, people have a lot of questions, in terms of what's the right time to start your entrepreneurial journey and how to go through that journey. So I have a small deck which I had created, for young people like you. And we'll be going through that deck now, okay? And as Professor Arpit said, do share your queries, on the chat box, and we'll definitely address some of them based on the availability of time. Okay, yeah. So okay, so as I said, we'll be going through this deck. It's not a very big deck, and it covers a lot of things. So it covers a lot of things about the way this whole journey pans out for entrepreneurs, and what are the challenges. And as I said, we will talk about it mutually. We'll discuss few things. So let's start. And hey, by the way, I forgot to welcome all of you. This is an induction program, so all of you are students of the first year, and so welcome to the wonderful world of management education. And all of you plan to be management professionals. Welcome you to this wonderful world. So as the text says, enduring entrepreneurs, So how does this whole journey start? A lot of times people ask me, hey, I want to be an entrepreneur, and I would like to kind of can someone guide me how to be an entrepreneur? And can you teach someone how to be an entrepreneur? Okay, I think now that's a tough question to answer, but what I've seen is, as I said, I've worked with a lot of entrepreneurs. I was with Quick Heal for about 15 years, and was part of a stage, we were just like 20 employees, and then it was a long journey. We saw a lot of phases. We went public. We got funds from one of the world's largest, venture capital funds somewhere on the way, and so on and so forth. I was part of the board of directors as well. But that's a different journey. And last 3 4 years, I've been again associated with a lot of startups. In fact, currently I work full time with one. I've been an investor in few startups, very early stage. I've been an angel basically, and so on and so forth. So how does this whole thing start, right? I mean, so normally the way I have seen it is, like people kind of entrepreneurs, that I've met typically have something on their mind, that there's something they've identified, which is typically a problem that they would love to solve. That hey, and see the problem that you solve is it's never big or small. Okay, so that's one very important thing to note. So there's a problem and it needs to be solved. Okay, and you would love to solve that problem. So would you love to solve that problem, is something which is very important, when we think of entrepreneurship. uh, the next one is, hey, are you the first entity to solve this problem? Is it good or bad to be not the first one, or is it good to be the first one, to identify a problem that you intend to solve, as on your entrepreneurial journey? And now this is a question where I would say that, hey, it would pretty much depend on, how good is, what you offer to the market. Okay, in fact, sometimes it's good not to be the first person, the first organization to bring a solution for a problem. Okay, because somebody has already done that, they failed, and you learn from somebody else's mistakes, and sometimes it's a great way of going ahead with things. So not necessarily always to be the first one to identify a problem, okay, or try to solve a problem. Another question which I would ask is, hey, will people pay you to get that problem solved? So assuming that when you're trying to be an entrepreneur, you are probably trying to build a business, unless you're trying to be a social entrepreneur, and social entrepreneurs also need money to run businesses, right? So obviously there has to be somebody has to pay money to get some problem solved, and only then, businesses can be run. So that's very important. Hey, will people pay you to, get a problem that you want to get solved? So that's how it works out. Then, hey, is it a right thing to do even? I mean, is it a great business idea? What is the size of that opportunity? I mean, are there 100 people who want to get this problem solved, or are there 1,000 people, or a few 100,000 people, or there are millions and millions of people who would like to get this problem solved? Now, this would decide on the size of the opportunity, that you are actually looking at. So it's very important, to understand what is the size of the opportunity that you're trying to solve, and it would also kind of then define, the kind of efforts, the kind of competition and stuff that you would face in this journey of yours. Okay. Now, very importantly, I mean, this is one thing, we face a lot when we interact with young entrepreneurs, and that is that, a lot of them falls head along, into an activity without validating the ideas that they have, So just because I believe that this is a problem, I would like to solve it and, make money out of it. Have you talked even with a single prospect customer, somebody who you believe is a prospect customer? Are they even, do they believe that the problem you feel is a problem? Okay. And let me tell you, I've seen people losing crores of rupees in this process. I'm talking only of the Indian scenario. So I've seen people actually, blowing away crores of rupees in the process of building concepts where the concept has not been validated by customer, and then after few years, they suddenly, they're back and they say, hey, I mean, it was great concept, we spent so much money, and something's come out and then nobody wants it. So hey, get your ideas validated by the customer. Okay, so just like it, just because you believe it's great and then you have money and you feel that it's a great opportunity, don't get into it. Okay. Another one is, hey, the problem you solve need not be sexy, So, I mean, as the Americans say, is it sexy? Is it great? I mean, is it exciting, So, hey, not all problems or business ideas are sexy, So for example, somebody converting, community waste into money. Is it a sexy idea? Definitely no. I mean, I know entrepreneurs who have built models. They're still struggling, let me tell you that, but they have built models where they generate wealth or money out of segregation of public waste, which basically is there in every large city. So they pick up that waste, segregate it, and then there are a lot of precious things. Post segregation, there's opportunity to generate power out of it as well. So it's a multi-pronged activity that they try to do. So it's not a sexy thing to do, right? Nobody would like to do waste segregation. So but so that's what I'm trying to say. Hey, not every idea is a sexy idea. In fact, uh, when I first heard of WhatsApp, I said, hey, I already have a messenger, an SMS messenger. Why do I need a WhatsApp? And that was the one reason was in India we didn't have great internet bandwidth, and not everybody was I mean constantly on the internet. So I felt it was not a great idea. Incidentally, the fund which was with us was also funding them. Obviously, WhatsApp was a much big ticket thing for them because it was US. But they kept on periodically talking with us about it, and initially I never realized that it was such a great thing. So hey, what the idea is it's more important in terms of what's the value it provides people. Okay, so let's move to the next slide. So great, I mean, so we've done everything on page one, so we know we have a problem to be solved. We know that people also admit that such problem exists. There's a big enough market, everything's been sorted out. And now you say that now let's start on that journey of actually solving the problem, and then obviously individuals don't solve problem, right? You need a team of people, right-minded people, or people who share values and thoughts and business ideas. So it's very important. So in fact, this is a question I always ask. I mean, when people come to me, are you individual or a group of people? I mean, so again, I know of a very smart entrepreneur who I was working with some time back, highly educated. I mean, when I say highly educated, the usual, very high, I mean, premium institute education, then, PhD in the US again from a leading institution, and so on and so forth. I was after this individual for a long time that he should find a co-founder for himself because he had expertise in a certain domain, but the solution that he was trying to build was so broad. I always kept on telling him, hey, I mean, you ideally, pick up someone, pick up at least one guy, who would complement you. Why are you trying to do it all alone? So in fact, always recommend people, because this is again a typical Indian thing. I mean, I've seen Indian businessmen advising their kids, or even parents advising their kids, hey, no, we don't want partners. The instance you have partners, things go bad and blah blah. But let me tell you, the new generation businesses that I've been associated with are normally so complex. It is always good to have founders, co-founders, who would complement you, and then yes, it's a challenge finding, people who think like you, who are, I mean, associated with you so strongly, and you form a great team. But yes, it works great. It's always good to have, co-founders. I've seen organizations, where there were co-founders, and they really, even right now, I'm seeing multiple such cases, and these are young organizations, 2 or 3 years old. They are at a break even. One of the most important things I've observed is there are co-founders, and they complement each other. If somebody's great at technology, somebody's great at facing people. If somebody is great at facing people, and then there's somebody who's great in terms of getting money or getting finances, and so on and so forth. They complement each other. So that's one important thing. Next is, hey, I mean, sometimes so people are very desperate, I mean, hey, they try to hire as soon as they have a business idea. Let's hire someone and get it done, And this is one thing, I mean, should you hire is in itself a big question. I mean, should you hire in the early stages of your business activity? Uh, so, again, I would always recommend do not hire if it is absolutely necessary. And what this means is, you would end up putting more hard work. There would be long working hours. You will have to get out of your comfort zone, So, and that's something a lot of people are not comfortable with. I mean, getting out of comfort zone. I mean, working long hours. So, but do not ideally hire till it's definitely necessary. But at same time, there is a right time and when you need to hire, and then you should also not avoid hiring, when that right time arrives. But as long as it can be managed internally, yes, try. Uh, how do small businesses hire people? So hey, I mean, you go out, and that's why having co-founders is great. You might not need to hire people immediately, maybe even for a few months or even a year or so. So and then when I talk, I don't even mean that all of these have to be technology businesses. They can even be traditional businesses. It could be a food business. But what I'm talking about is the new generation businesses. I'm not talking about uh, a food business which is not supported by technology, or I'm not talking about a home services business which is not supported by technology. So I'm talking about more of new generation businesses. So yes, having great team works for you. Okay. Uh, so hiring is something to be delayed as far as possible, and when you hire, ensure that you hire people who share your passion. They're tough to find, but they exist in market. And the next point, incidentally, kind of gives you more insight on that. So lack of experience does not mean lack of capability, and it applies even to you. I mean, when if you plan to be an entrepreneur, just because you like worked only for 2 years or 3 years, or you just out of your MBA, doesn't mean that you lack the capability. And similarly, when you hire, doesn't mean that because you're hiring inexperienced people, they lack the capability. They might lack experience, but they definitely don't lack the capability, and that's very important. And then as entrepreneurs, I always would say that, hey, especially in smaller teams, transparency is very critical. I mean, open communication, sharing, when everybody shares success, but sharing failures, and then actually saying that, hey, why did we fail, is very important. Or I mean, hiding of things is something, it's not really advisable in small teams. Why small teams? Not even in bigger teams, but small teams it becomes even tougher. And then especially in the early stages of business. Another thing very important for the founders, or promoters, is that, hey, if you, even if there's a smallest iota of disappointment being displayed of you guys, it's bad for the whole organization, that small organization. So I've seen, most of the successful guys that who've been working with, or when I say successful, they have survived. That's very important. Survival is very important. These are guys with very high energy, with, I mean, irrespective of successes and failures, they're very motivated, a lot of drive, so these are some factors I would stress upon, when we talk about a team, for a startup. So that's something about the kind of people, one needs when we work in teams or startups or early stage companies. Now, so this is again one very important, so uh, do not ever be afraid of asking for help internally, within your team, so because just because you're a founder promoter does not mean you have to be a master of everything. Just because you have conceived or thought of the idea, you're ideated, doesn't mean you're master of that. In fact, I've seen businesses, where the founders are not the guys who are building the product. In fact, they're sales guys, or they're tech support guys, and then they identified a right technology guy to help them build a product, or they outsource development of products, and so on and so forth. There's a lot of interesting things over here. So asking for help is something, I would always say is very important, be it internally or externally. In fact, this is one area where I've seen Indians are very shy. We are afraid of asking people for help. And and just because there's somebody who you have employed, can you ask them for help? Can you go ask them to uh, go out of their way? And when I say ask, hey, I mean, that's where that whole teamwork comes into play. Obviously, as long as you don't force somebody to go out of their way, or do you a favor, it really matters. And let me tell you, people are helpful, people are supportive. Okay. Now, let's say, what's important, thing that we should, look into when we think of businesses, and that's business model. So you have a concept, so we say this is the value, this is the problem we're going to solve, this is how we're going to do it. The promoters are there, everything else is ready. Okay. Then, comes the business model. So do you have your business model? Your MBA course would, actually teach you this term which I mentioned in the third point, which is GTM. And GTM is actually a very broad term, it's go-to market strategy, and a go-to market strategy is a very broad term. I really love this term. Might appear a bit textbookish, but it's a great term, because the GTM covers everything in terms of what a business would typically be, look like to the external ecosystem, to the internal ecosystem. What is it that you're going to take to the market? What's the value customers are going to derive? How would they actually, how will you reach to your customer? At what price will the customer buy your product? If it's a service, what price will the customer actually get their service? Are you going to sell the product directly to the customer, or will you go take it through an intermediate, a dealer, partner, distributor, whatever? Are you going to follow an online model, and how will you build awareness about your product? So practically anything and everything, delivery of value, customer enjoying the value, and then even getting feedback on the value which has been delivered. Everything is covered in this whole GTM strategy. And this whole GTM strategy and your business model, when you start, it's very important. I mean, you can't have very ultra rigid business models. That's one thing which is very important. Business models have to be flexible, because we have very limited understanding of markets when we start. So it's very important, that you let it be fluid. So I have seen companies start with a certain business model. See, one of the reasons why I'm not giving a lot of illustrations is because I work a lot more with technology companies, and so some of the illustrations may not really be very interesting or nice. uh, so I'll give an example, but still, over here in terms of flexibility, and it's a process right now which certain that happens. So this startup, it started with hardware products, which typically go into certain IoT applications. Now, I know IoT is a term which some of you might have heard, some of you might have not heard, but it's again a very popular. It's called Internet. Let's not get into it. What is it all about? But they have built some pieces of hardware, industrial hardware, and it's a 2-year-old company, and they're trying very hard to get customers. They got some customers, they made some revenue, but the next stage of growth is very tough. Okay. And in that whole process, during a lot of interaction with customers, investors, and so on and so forth, it was realized that going with only hardware, electronics was not good enough. People wanted a complete solution. They wanted, okay, so if I take this hardware, I put it into an application, where I get some value out of it. Am I able to derive the whole value only using hardware, or do I need software as well? And who will give me the software? So we used to say that, hey, no, there's this company that will give you that software, there's that company that will give you software. This to say, then why don't you tell that company to come and sell it to us? And that company, when we tell that company to go and sell our product, obviously, they might not have it in their priority. So it was realized that the value chain is important. People are not interested in products, people are interested in solutions. Now, see, a lot of people will tell you this, but it's only when you go through that learning that you change your policy or change your strategy. Okay, so that's why I said, is your business model flexible enough to be modified based on market needs? Okay, so it is very important. I mean, um, so you start a restaurant, okay, and then you realize that the part of, city that you work in. Okay, let's take a case, a public general case. Not really an entrepreneurial one, but I believe all of you are aware that that Domino's Pizza, a very popular brand, it's primarily delivery only in the US. They don't serve pizza in their restaurant or the delivery point. But when they came to India, they realized, that Indians like to eat outside. They don't like to eat their pizza at home. In fact, and then, and then they had to change their strategy in India. And now, if you go to a Domino's pizza, there will be some chairs and tables over there, and you can consume your pizza in the Domino's in India, which doesn't happen in the US. But this is very typical. So business models need to be flexible enough, for them to work, for them to deliver value to the customer. So, is the process for a value delivery in place? Okay, so how does the value get delivered to the customer? Okay, is that whole thing in place? I mean, is it just a plan, or how have you? So there are always pieces which need to be created, built, and so that the whole thing gets delivered. So, are those all in place? Very important point to be understood. Okay, is your financial model ready? Okay, how will the customer pay you? Will he pay you upfront? Are you going to give a subscription? Okay. Will you be able to, so if it's a high value product or service that you're selling to the customer, will you be able to tap with a bank or a credit card company to give customer an option to pay in installments? So there are a lot of things, and then if whatever the financial model you have in terms of making money, getting money, so on and so forth, how will I get my money? Will it be enough to sustain my business for next so and so many months? And after those so and so many months, do I have enough money to actually keep on running my business, to scale it up, and so on and so forth? See, while these are theoretical models, paper models, it is very important to have them, because sometimes you will realize that whatever is happening is better than your finance model, or it is very bad than your finance model. But because there's a deviation, you will know that, hey, there's a warning bell and you need to correct and you need to make changes. Okay, so that's why this whole financial model is again very important. Okay. So business model, if in the industry I come from, this is a very typical question, which we kind of deal with, is when will I acquire my first paying customer? So when will you get your first customer? Unless you are in a B2C business, which is bordering a traditional one, in a lot of new generation businesses, acquiring a first customer could be very challenging. Okay. So I've seen, for example, somebody started a sporting facility, and it was, facility which was on the outskirts of the city, and he felt, people would come there like they come for a picnic, and then they would spend the whole day, playing cricket, playing tennis, playing table tennis, and so on and so forth. But it's still in process, and he's finding it very tough to get customers. Indians don't have the habit of going out and then, on a day trip and then spending the whole day playing over there with their family. So when will I acquire my first paying customer? And then will I be ready to deliver the planned value when I get my customer, okay, or customers? So this is something which is very important, when you build your business models. So let's go to the next one. Okay, I'll go through this a bit fast. I realize, timing is time. We started late, so this is very important point. In fact, people love to talk more about this than the actual business model, but we wouldn't spend a lot of time on this. So with business model and GTM, you should also have a tentative budget to start and run the business for the initial period. Good probability you might not make any money for first few months. So do you have enough money to run that? And what is that money? And that's what your financial model also takes care of. Very important thing which I would like to stress upon. People believe that, I will go to a bank and I'll get a loan to start a business. Banks do not give money if you don't have assets. Okay. So when I say asset is anything like a home or a piece of land or gold or something, which your parents would have to mortgage to get that loan. So where I'm coming from is banks fund only against assets. If you heard of this term angel investors, it's about people who will give you some money to start a business. If you have a great business idea, I think in Indian context, your relatives and friends can also be your angel investors. Do not shy away from talking about it, in your internal circles. Investors will invest if there is validation of the business case and few paying customers in place. So, typically, if you go to an investor, a more professional investor will ask you, "Hey, is the model already running? Do you have customers? Are they paying for it?" So that's when you will be able to get money from a more professional investor like a private equity or a venture capital fund. Okay. Uh, Raising and managing funds can be a full-time activity. Yes, it is very complex and it's a full-time activity. And I think some of this you might run in your course. Okay. There's a term I've used in the index, understand cash flows. Where does the money come from? Where does it go? I think you will have few courses on finance in your MBA. And I believe they should help you to understand at least the basic concept of cash flows. So are you ready for the roller coaster ride? The crazy roller coaster ride of being an entrepreneur. Okay. So it's a crazy ride, let me tell you that. It's a tough ride. I've seen, some people crying, I mean, out of frustration. Boss spent 8 years and then here I am, if I would have worked, it would have been better. Question which I ask in such cases, are you emotionally and financially ready? When this emotion part is very this thing, as I said, because it's a crazy ride, a lot of ups and downs. Okay, a lot of risks. You need a lot of passion, as I said. Even in spite of a lot of ups and downs, you need to always show a positive thing to your whole team. That the entrepreneur, the founder, always is expected to be, uh, I mean. That high energy thing. So are you emotionally and financially ready? When I say financially ready, it's a risk, right? So hey, I'm going to be in this for next 4 years or 5 years, irrespective of the outcomes. I'll stretch it. I'll take all the risk. Okay. So and then what is the right time? So the right time I always say is now. So for example, some of you who have want to be entrepreneurs. In fact, these 2 years could be great time for you to start planning. You're in college and you can start planning in that phase. Because there's an ecosystem there. Which can support you. You can learn more about entrepreneurship. You can learn. In fact, you might find your co-founders over here. Who would have similar ideas or similar interests like you. So the right time to start an entrepreneurial journey is it's like I know entrepreneurs who are like I mean, we all heard of people, like 15, 16-year entrepreneurs. The oldest guy I dealt with is like recently is 47 years old, very successful engineer. He gave up everything. He has got college going kids and he plunged into it, and he's put all his savings into it. High risk, and he's not at a break even level, but he's so passionate about it. I've worked for him for about 2 quarters. He had his own challenges, different story. He was able to raise few some funds, but what I'm coming from is the right time is always there. The time when you feel you're ready is the time when you start your entrepreneurial journey. Okay, so that's about the timing. Very important things. Do not be afraid to reach out to people. Entrepreneurs are normally not shy people. They are very outgoing people. They'll talk, they'll share their ideas. In fact, never be afraid of sharing your ideas. Nobody's going to copy your ideas. Okay, if your ideas are so great, somebody else will have already thought of that. It's not always that your idea is. So it's more about believing in your idea and taking it to fruition and building something out of it. So if you don't share your ideas with anybody, they will never fructify. You will never be able to build a business. Discuss with a lot of people. Discuss with diverse set of people. Who would have different perspectives on the things that you are on your mind, and you'll learn new things from them. It's very important. And yes, it is okay to ask for help. If you're struggling, if there's a problem, go ask for help. Not everybody would help, but somebody would help. And then there's no harm in asking for help. Don't be shy. In fact, something which comes out of this is don't be shy. Entrepreneurs are normally not shy people. In fact, they're proactive people. They're people with positive mindset. Okay, so that's very important. I think that's all on this deck. We could go to question and answers, and anything you would like to know about this deck, or anything you would like to know in general about entrepreneurship or the startup ecosystem. I would answer more from my personal observations and perspectives. And another very important thing is whatever I talked right now, nothing is sacrosanct. This is all fluid, very dynamic in nature. So yes, Arpit, I'm good to take questions. Yeah.
Sir, after listening to you, a lot of students have put up questions, and I will come one by one. Sir, first question to you is Sequoia has announced that they are coming up with two new funds in India with 1.3 billion being the worth of it to specifically invest in India. So, what is your take on this?
So so we had Sequoia at Quick Heal, you know. Anyway, they were a late stage entrant in Quick Heal. But see, Sequoia is a big daddy, you know, I mean, in terms of funds, you know, it's a large fund. They have had they've got a lot of success stories. They have been in Google, they've been in Yahoo, they've been in WhatsApp. They were a lot of good Indian companies as well. They were with us at Quick Heal, you know. So it's a good thing, you know. So guys, very importantly, Sequoia getting 1.35 billion in India is a great thing. It shows their commitment to the Indian market and their belief in Indian market. Okay,
Right, right.
whether you would get that money from Sequoia is a different story. Yes, so what I would say is yes, that's a good indication that Indian entrepreneurial activity is great and they have belief in it. That's why they're bringing in another round of large fund.
Exactly. Sir, the second question is it's a very interesting question. Sir, technology has to be at the center of every entrepreneurial big idea now.
See, now you know I come from so I come from a industry, you know, which is technology heavy. You know, I've always sold technology. So you're asking a wrong guy this question, but I would say no. You know, entrepreneurs need not be technology. I mean, rather, entrepreneurial ventures need not necessarily be technology driven. See, technology is end of the day tool. So if we look at food delivery guys, you know, I mean, we talk of Swiggy's or Zomato's of the world, or you know, there are a lot of other such instances. Technology is an enabler. Technology is never the business. Remember that, you know. So yes, if you have a business idea, but remember one thing: in the new paradigm, it is very tough to scale without technology. Remember that. So your core business need not have technology, but technology is a great enabler. Remember that. And it is technology which will help you to scale up, you know. The new generation, the new dynamics, you will hardly see businesses which do not use. I mean, you take case of Haldiram's, Nagpur. I mean, I've seen the Delhi guys as well. If you take case of Nagpur guys, for example, the various scaled up, crazy amount of technology, but they are a food company or Chitale, which is a Pune-based company. I mean, some of you are aware the amount of technology they use, and it's not only information technology; it's the equipment they use. You know, the networking, everything else that's being used. You know, in terms of market reach, building awareness, using social media for building awareness. So technology is a tool; it need not be the core of your business. Yeah.
Sir, this is an interesting question from a student of mine who comes from Indore. Sir, if I fail in job, can I be successful in business?
See, definitely, there is no reason why someone who has failed in a job cannot be a good entrepreneur. You know, uh, so I must not say that I've failed in jobs. I have not been an entrepreneur, but I've been an intrapreneur to say so. Okay, and as I said, I've been an investor. There's no reason why you can't be a successful entrepreneur. If you have what it takes to be an entrepreneur, you know, if you have empathy, you know, in terms of delivering value to your customers, if you're ready to understand the nuances of finance, you know, I talked of financial discipline, understanding cash flows. Okay, if you're, as I said, you're ready to understand customers problems, deliver value, and at the same time ensure that you know, you have empathy but still understand that this is a business, you understand cash flows. Hey, why can't you be a businessman? Why can't you have your own business? There's nothing to prevent you from doing that. In fact, a lot of times when you're working for somebody, it is the way they look at market, their non-empathy for the customers or their financial models which might not prevented you from performing great. So hey, you can still be a great entrepreneur.
Sir, this question is from a student of mine who comes from Rajasthan and has a very long and a successful business. He comes from a business family. He has been messaging me, sir, please ask my question. So I'm compelled to ask now. He asks, so managing generation gap in established business is one of the primary reasons why they quit. So what is your comment?
Arpit, I lost you in the last sentence. Can you please repeat?
Managing generation gap in established business is one of the reasons for their downfall or failures. Managing generation gap.
So I think very typical, issue. I would say, well, generation gap would always exist. I think the challenge is not about managing generation gap. The challenge is in terms of the two generations working together, and respecting each other. So the earlier generation also carries knowledge. It's very important to understand.
True.
And a lot of times, what I've seen is the younger generation is in so much of hurry, to do things. Okay. When I say this, I don't mean to say or demean the younger generation. Yes, you have great ideas. You want to scale up fast, and that's where that whole technology angle came in. But then, probability that the older generation is not very comfortable doing that. They would like to take it one step at a time. I'll give a quick perspective on this. In Quick Heal, from a 20 people team to 1600 people took us 13 to 14 years. Okay, and that's when we reached IPO and so on and so forth. But see, we had the luxury of that 1 decade plus to scale the business. Nowadays, when I work with startups, I can tell you they don't have that time. They'll have to ensure that in 4 to 5 years they reach a respectable business. Okay, so how effectively are you able to utilize the existing skill set of your seniors, your family members, okay, and at same time convince them that the new changes are important to adopt because they can help you to scale faster, take the business to the next level is very important. A lot of times it's more about communication, I would say, good communication, being honest, or the generation gap part of it, where hey, the senior guy feels that yaar isko to kuch aata nahi hai, and you feeling ke boss wo to purane zamane ke hai. It's more about complementing each other. It is more about having synergy, okay, इनका ये अच्छा है, इनको ये अच्छा आता है, and how can we actually, everybody, see, you have common goals, right? Have you discussed, hey, what's our goal? How are we going to reach that goal? Can we improve? Can we speed up, going ahead, and so on and so forth? So these are things which actually come up. It can work together. It need not be negative. Yeah.
So my next question to you is, why some? This is a very interesting question and a very critical question. I feel in today's parlance, when you pick up newspaper, or no, you don't pick up newspaper, when you read online, the question goes like this: why some promising startups sell their stake or they get acquired rather than fighting back and surviving?
So remember one thing, gentlemen, friends. If this is, for example, if we're talking about Flipkart, I mean that was one of the most, in news, most visible case, where they sold off their business, let's say to Amazon, not to Amazon, sorry, this Flipkart sold off, Walmart. Okay, so one of the most visible cases. In fact, I had some good friends working there. Do you know they were struggling to see a lot of this new generation businesses, their business models are very different. They're actually spending money to acquire customers, and then some of them have reached a stage where the business is running purely on the investments that they are getting from their investors, and these are not traditional businesses. So let me tell you something. A very senior investor from a large venture capital fund once told me, hey, something, we don't invest in e-commerce companies globally. We don't invest in e-commerce companies. We don't understand that business. We don't understand that business. Where I'm coming from is, Selling off is a time typically when the promoter believes that, hey, I've reached a stage where the best possible that I could have done for this business, most probably I've done it. Okay. The next phase deserves, or the company deserves a different kind of management, a different kind of capabilities, different kind of monetary capabilities. And that's when, they would sell their stake. Some of them would continue as minority stakeholders, but some would completely sell off. So there are different reasons.
Sir, this is the last question I'll take, considering your engagement after this session. Sir, what is the impact of ban on China and the confrontation that we had with China, as it generates a lot of funding for startups? And will the startup industry, or so to say, the fraternity in India, will feel the heat?
So see, well, the Chinese funds have gone into, so typically what I've seen is the Chinese funds have not gone into very small startups. They've gone into the bigger ones, the more visible ones. I would not say this would have a near-term impact on the guys who are planning to get into entrepreneurial activities. Okay, there are very large funds globally. Okay, there are funds from Japan, there are funds from all over the world. I mean, in fact, you might not even heard of some of the Japanese funds or Korean funds who are in India. They're very large funds. Yes, there would be some impact in some parts, but overall, if you ask me, it's going to create more opportunities, especially on the manufacturing side, I mean, on the tech manufacturing side, I mean, the amount of imports we had from China. I mean, if you go in Google, you have the precise amount of imports we had. So obviously, it seems that if X is what we exported, we imported 10x is roughly the ratio. So considering that, there would be humongous or huge amount of opportunity which we can already see. I mean, the organizations I work for right now, hey, I mean, it's an import substitute product, and suddenly, there's this lot of hue and cry, and government is really not keen on getting products from outside. Suddenly, guys who were not keen on talking saste mein milta hai suddenly coming and saying, hey, can we talk? We are interested in buying from you. Okay, so obviously they want us to still sell at a lower price, but they understand that it may not necessarily match the prices at which they were buying from China. But yes, now suddenly it's opening up a lot of new avenues and green pastures. So yes, opportunity. Well, something there's some part which might lose, this bigger chunk to gain. That's what I personally feel. But again, this is a personal opinion. Yeah.
Sir, there is no dearth of questions can continue till 7:30, but I have to stop here. Sir, thank you so much for your time, your patience, your energy, your guidance. You have been mentor to students, you have been support system to the institute. We look forward to getting you to the institute and talking to the students when they join us physically in Pune. Thank you so much, and stay safe, stay alert, sir.
Thanks, Arpit. And again, welcome all of you, all the students. Thanks for calling me. Hope all of you stay safe and have a great professional career ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.